So you're using Terraform. You're deep in the infrastructure as code world. That's awesome. But what if one tiny mistake, just one command, could bring your whole system crashing down? Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about the Lifecycle block. It is your absolute best friend for preventing disaster and really mastering Terraform. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a terrifying thought, right? You run a totally routine Terraform apply, maybe you're on the wrong workspace, and boom, your most critical data is just gone. This isn't some hypothetical nightmare, you know. This is a very real risk with Terraform's default settings. You see, out of the box, Terraform follows a really simple, logical pattern. It makes stuff, it updates stuff when you change the code, and when you delete something from your code, it destroys the real thing. And look, that's great for dev environments. But in production, that's a recipe for a really bad day. And this is exactly where the Lifecycle block saves the day. You should think of it like a control panel for your resources. It's your way of giving Terraform very specific, special instructions that say, hey, for this one thing, ignore your normal rules and handle it with care. So let's think of the Lifecycle block as a toolkit. Inside, there are a few really specific tools that give you this fine-grained control. We're going to break down the 3 most important ones one by one.
All right, first up is create before destroy. The name pretty much says it all, right? By default, when you change a resource, Terraform destroys the old one before it creates the new one. And what does that mean? Downtime. This one little argument completely flips that script.
And the impact here is massive. Without this, updating, say, a server's machine image means your application just goes offline for a bit. But with Create Before Destroy, you get to do 0 downtime deployments. It's a game changer.
And would you look at how simple this is? You just drop the Lifecycle block inside your resource, and you set Create Before Destroy to true. That is it. A single line of code can be the difference between a seamless update and an outage. The best way to think about it is like replacing an old bridge. You wouldn't just tear the old one down and leave all the cars stranded, right? No, you'd build the brand new, better bridge right next to it, open it up to traffic, and only then do you safely take down the old one. That is exactly what Create Before Destroy is doing for your infrastructure. Okay, next tool in the kit, Prevent Destroy. This one is your ultimate safety net. I mean it. When this is set to true, Terraform will flat out refuse to destroy the resource. It doesn't matter what you do. It's a hard stop against accidental deletion. The difference here is night and day. Without it, one little mistake could wipe everything out. With it, Terraform just throws an error and stops the whole operation dead in its tracks. It's like putting a "Do Not Demolish" sign on your most valuable digital assets. So, for example, if you add this little block to an S3 bucket that holds all your production data, you've basically made it untouchable by Terraform. If anyone, even you, tries to delete it from the code or runs a Terraform destroy, Terraform will just say, nope, not going to do it, and save you from a complete catastrophe. So where to use this? Well, you save it for the absolute crown jewels of your infrastructure. We're talking production databases, those S3 buckets with the irreplaceable data, maybe some critical IAM roles that if you deleted them, you'd lock everyone out. The really important stuff. Now for our final tool, ignore changes. This solves a totally different kind of problem called configuration drift. See, sometimes other systems outside of Terraform, like an auto-scaling group or even a person making a manual change, will modify a resource. Normally, Terraform sees this as a mistake and will try to change it back on the next run. And that can lead to this constant fight. Before ignore changes, Terraform is a bit of a control freak, always trying to enforce its version of the truth. But after, you can tell it, hey, for this one specific thing, it's cool. Just let it go. Let the other system handle it. So in this example, we're telling Terraform to just ignore any changes that happen to the tags of an AWS instance. This means if your ops team adds a temporary tag for monitoring or something, Terraform won't just come along and wipe it out on the next apply. This is so useful for things like auto-scaling groups that change instance counts, or tags that are managed by a separate security tool, or even some of that metadata that your cloud provider adds automatically. It basically lets Terraform play nicely with others. Okay, so you get the tools now, but knowing how to use them is only half the battle. Let's talk about how you can use this knowledge to absolutely ace your next job interview. Because this isn't just about good practice, this is about showing that you have senior-level expertise. So when the interviewer asks you about the Lifecycle block, the quote you see on screen, that's your money answer.
It is perfect. It's concise, it covers all the key reasons you'd use it, and it shows you don't just know what it is, you know why it's so important.
And to help you remember that when you're under pressure, here's a super simple memory trick. If your goal is safety and no downtime, you use create before destroy. To protect something valuable, prevent destroy. And to deal with external changes, ignore changes. Simple as that. Now, a really good interviewer is going to test you with a follow-up. They're going to ask something like, okay, that's great. So, should you just put a lifecycle block on every single resource? And the pro answer is a confident no. This is what shows you have real-world judgment and experience. You explain that Lifecycle is a specialized tool, it's not a default setting. You use it intentionally, almost surgically, only on the resources that truly need that extra protection.
And hey, here's one last little piece of nuance that will really make you stand out. The lifecycle block does not break Terraform's dependency graph. Terraform is still smart enough to figure out the right order to do things, even when you're using create before destroy.
So really, our big takeaway today is that the lifecycle block is what elevates your Terraform skills. It takes you from just describing infrastructure to strategically managing it. It gives you the control you need to handle all the messy complexities of the real world. Which brings us to our final question, and this one's for you. You have the tools now, but the real skill is knowing when and where to use them. So take a second and think about your own work. What resources in your infrastructure are truly indispensable? Which ones can you absolutely positively not afford to lose? That's where you start.